All right, so we've spent this whole series digging into Sun Tzu's The Art of War. Now, for the final piece, we're going to pull it all together. We're going to forge 2,000 years of wisdom into one practical method you can actually use in your daily life, starting, right now. But let's start with a question that I think hits home for pretty much everyone. Why do we keep falling into the same traps? I mean, why do we keep repeating the same behaviors when we know deep down from painful experience where they lead? Straight to frustration and regret. You know, the answer is surprisingly simple, but also really profound. When we don't act with conscious reason, we're not really in control. It's like our lives are being run on autopilot. This system of impulse and unthinking habit that just grabs the wheel the second our rational mind isn't paying attention. So here's what we're going to cover in this explainer. First, we'll look at why we repeat mistakes. Then we'll build out that integrated strategy based on Sun Tzu's principles, talk about how to use it ethically, without being manipulative. We'll see it in action with some everyday examples. And then we'll wrap up with a super simple weekly review you can start using right away. Okay, let's get into it. The key to finally breaking that cycle of making the same mistakes over and over, it all comes down to understanding the two basic systems that are running the show in our minds. So, modern psychology tells us our minds basically have two modes, two gears. System 1 is fast, automatic, emotional. It's our gut reaction. System 2 is slow, deliberate, and logical. It's our capacity for deep thought. The problem, though? System 2 is, it's lazy. It takes real conscious effort to get it going. So strategic living, really, is just the art of consciously shifting into that slower, more thoughtful gear. And here's the really important part. We don't have to just leave this up to chance. We can actually build a system to deliberately wake up our rational mind. And what's amazing is that Sun Tzu's ancient framework gives us the perfect blueprint to do just that. Okay, and this is where it all clicks together. It's fascinating how perfectly Sun Tzu's military factors translate to our own lives. The moral law, that becomes your core values. Heaven isn't some mystical thing, it's about timing. Earth, that's your environment. The commander, that's you, your own character. And method and discipline, those are the systems and habits that really run your day-to-day life.
Okay, but let's pause for a second. Whenever we talk about strategy and influence, an important question comes up, right? It can sound a little manipulative. So it's absolutely vital that we draw a really clear line between effective ethical planning and, harmful manipulation.
Yeah, let's be super clear on this. Manipulation is all about coercion. It's about forcing a win-lose outcome just for selfish gain. True strategy, on the other hand, is the complete opposite. It's built on a foundation of integrity. It's about creating the right conditions for a win-win result. And that comes from self-control, good timing, and having deep respect for everyone involved. All right, so let's make this real. How does this actually play out in everyday life? We're going to look at 3 super common challenges. At work, in our relationships, and with our own personal habits. So let's start with the workplace. Think about it. How many times have you been on a project that just completely goes off the rails, and in the aftermath, everyone's saying, we should have seen that coming. That initial overconfidence just blinds us to really obvious risks. This goes right back to Sun Tzu. He said the wise general wins because they've already done tons of calculations in the temple before the first arrow is even fired. The modern version of this, the strategic solution, is something called a pre-mortem. It's brilliant. You get the team together and you say, okay, folks, let's imagine it's 6 months from now and this project was a total disaster. Why? What went wrong? By working backward from that imagined failure, we can spot all the weak points and fix them before we even start. Okay, now what about our relationships? So often, this feeling of resentment starts to build up. And it's not because anyone's a bad person, it's usually just a lack of communication. We have an expectation, the other person has no idea it even exists. And slowly, over time, that gap creates friction and distance. And here's a beautiful strategic solution. Using a simple phrase like, look, I really value our relationship, but I need to set a boundary here, does 2 amazing things at once. First, it affirms the connection. That's the value. And second, it clearly and respectfully protects your own well-being. That's your character. You're replacing assumptions with clarity. It's a game changer. And finally, let's talk about personal habits. We're so hard on ourselves, right? We blame a lack of willpower when we can't stick to a new habit. But here's the secret. Willpower is almost never the real problem. The real problem is your environment. So the strategic move isn't to just grit your teeth and try harder. It's to design a smarter environment. It's like they say, we fall to the level of our systems, not our goals. Want to eat healthier? Simple. Don't keep junk food in the house. Want to work out in the morning? Lay your clothes out the night before. You're just making the good choice the easy choice, and the bad choice the hard one.
Whew, okay, we've covered a lot here. So now, let's boil all of this down into one simple but really powerful practice you can use to bring that calm, deliberate action into your own life.
I call this the weekly strategy review. It's easy. Once a week, maybe on a Sunday night, just take 5 minutes. That's it. 5 minutes to pause and ask yourself these 5 questions, one for each of our factors. First, for values. Is what I'm doing aligned with my core principles? Second, timing. Is this really the right time for this? Third, environment. Is my space actually set up to help me succeed? Fourth, character. Am I acting from a place of strength and integrity here? And finally, fifth, systems. Do my daily habits actually support my big goals? This little check-in is so powerful. It reorients you, it engages that deliberate mind, and it makes sure you're moving through your week with purpose. And when you start bringing these elements together, week after week, a fundamental shift starts to happen. You stop being so reactive, just getting tossed around by whatever happens. You start becoming the calm, thoughtful commander of your own life. And that, right there, is the core lesson of this entire series on the art of war. We come to this book thinking it's all about war, about conflict with others, but it's not. Strategy, at its very heart, isn't about mastering conflict out there. It's about the deliberate, relentless pursuit of clarity inside yourself. So as we wrap up this entire series, I want to leave you with just one final question to take with you. What is the one small strategic move you can make this week, just one, to bring a little more clarity and a little more intention into your life? Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through the art of war. If you missed any part of it, don't worry, the full playlist is ready and waiting for you. And hey, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss our next series, where we'll tackle another one of the world's great classics. I'll see you then.